Perfect.
Okay, so I kind of assumed the role of the student. So that's the perspective that I took, and I framed everything around the stages of project implementation. So everything kind of went back to that. So the students would assume a variety of roles to model the six phases of the project implementation. And then first, students acted as the engineer company to propose a design for. My approach was a budget friendly, easy to assemble plant stand capable of holding six small potted plants. So that was the direction that I went because I was actually building one. So, the idea, stage one, was that they proposed that idea, and then they did a feasibility study to show that consumers wanted that they needed a plant stand that was budget friendly and easy to assemble. So that was good to go. And then stage two was the planning. And that's when I took on the role of the project manager to develop the scope of work. So what I did is I kind of color coded everything to go back to the different stages. And during this process, in order to create the scope of work, I had to look at cost. And in order to look at cost, I had to put my project idea out for bid. So the bidding process, the drawings, the top, the left, right, and the isometric view. So that's how my scope of work was developed, was by the drawings or through the drawings. So those went out to bid, and then during the bidding process, they took all of the parts to assemble it, and the total material and labor cost was about $58, and the profit was 15%. So that was added on for the total job cost of 66.93. Um, and then in stage three for the project execution was the actual assembly and construction of the plant stand. And this is where the construction manager came into play because they are going to oversee the execution and assembly of the product. And they're also going to do that while they're adhering to the constraints of things like making sure that they follow the timeline, stay within budget, and everything goes safely. All of the communication at this stage is going to happen through RFIs, or requests for information, so that they can document every change that is happening during the construction process. Um, and so during the execution, you can see the stages, that were built. So this was the first part. And if you go back to the bid, there are no nails on the bid. So it was lacking one part that needed. So the request for information was, how do we attach these slats to the base? And so in that communication, it said first that the direction that the boards had to go, and then that they needed trim nails in order to attach those to the base. So as you can see, that's going to be an issue down the road because that's going to eat into the profit. So that's just to continue the stage of construction, a third request for information, and the finished product. And then after that, during that whole process, the construction manager was also monitoring and controlling the construction to ensure that all of the key performance indicators were being met. And like I said, staying on budget, meeting the timeline. Um, there's that. You can see my husband's leg there. Okay. And then the last stage is the project closure. And this is kind of where there's an assessment or evaluation of the finished project, and any modifications that have to occur will happen in this stage. But it was constructed beautifully. It held six potted plants, and they were able to close out the deal. And then in the reflection and discussion, what I did was you can see that the pieces that kind of happened in each stage were tied back to what happened during that. And in the lab report, it goes more in depth as to, during stage one, they had the idea and the feasibility, the scope and work, so on in stage two, all the way up to stage 5. And then one of the issues, the trim nails was not included. So you can see that here, when the trim nails were included, there was about $1.60 cut into the profit. So the actual profit was less than the intended profit. And that was that.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Can you go back up to the top? I wanted to see, I might have missed how did you communicate? I think it's like slide 6. Is it slide 6 that had
The RFIs.
no, go up 3 more slides. The one right above that one. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So this was the communication. Yeah, perfect. Love this. And so, yeah, so this was the drawing that you submitted, right? And that it didn't
Correct.
have the interpretation of this drawing was that it didn't communicate the nails. So
Correct.
that's what was missing. Yeah. So I love that you just took like um, what you had, right? And built it and then simulated kind of the drawing process, that there would be some miscommunications and then having those RFIs. So this is perfect. And using, making up your own cost sheet, right, for the parts that you had. So this is a great project if you have like a company will like donate some random thing that you're like, what am I supposed to do with this? Or, or maybe there's a grant that was written and a teacher leaves and they have some extra supplies, so anything that's kind of like that you can assemble, that's the goal, right? Is what is something that you can assemble together, whether it's following fixed plans, but maybe like don't give them the box, right, of what it's supposed
Mhm.
to look like, or something that they can, you could also use this plant stand box and make something completely different too, right? Like you wouldn't have to necessarily follow these exact steps. So I really love the creativity in doing that. And I really appreciate that you understood the instructions because this is one of the projects that we've worked really hard on over the last couple of years, I would say, because it was really confusing about the different steps. Like,
Mhm.
what phases of the project are you in? What roles are you assuming? Because, like, we'll kind of see it with petroleum. You have like different hats that you're wearing. So I thought you did a great job explaining the different hats that you were wearing, and then tying it back to the project planning. So, yeah, do you have any like tips or tricks, or were there any parts where you were maybe like not clear on what you were supposed to do or what the students might have trouble with as you were going through it?
So I did have to watch the intro video a couple of times
Okay.
and take notes as I watched it. And basically, I was creating my introduction while I was watching the video. So my thought was that during that introduction, during that video, is that students really should be identifying the purpose and writing all of that down in their engineering notebook so that they have that to refer back to when they're going to develop their presentation or lab report. So for me, I did have to go back to that a couple of times and I did have to, I found it was a lot of links. So opening the lab report rubric, opening the presentation rubric, making sure that I was following all of the expectations, and it was like I was creating the lab report while I was watching the video. So that's really what helped me to organize everything. And just to see how it was laid out, where we were taking on the various roles, that helped me to put it into perspective and relate it back to the stages or the phases.
Yeah, perfect. And so, this was kind of, even though we've read lab reports and y'all have had activities with it, this was y'all's first time really like digging into it and doing it
Mhm.
yourselves. And so I think that's really interesting feedback, that that was a resource you found helpful. So, as you're implementing this in your classroom as one of your first discipline projects, like let's just say that construction management's the first one that you do. So maybe pre-recording a video of yourself giving the presentation or using mine, right? But
Mhm.
if you want to jazz yours up or make it a little bit better, and having that as a resource for the kids to like refer back to
Mhm.
for that first one so that they can say like, oh, these are the things that I might need to pay attention to, or these are the things that I found helpful. Not that you would necessarily record a
Mhm.
video for all of them, but maybe those first one or two lab reports, having a recording of you giving it, because the things that you're going to say are going to be a little bit different than the things that I'm going to say, and
Mhm.
that's a great observation that was a resource that you found helpful. And of
And
course,
even in the planning of my presentation, knowing that what to say, like the purpose of this exercise is to blah blah blah.
yeah,
And when I went on the internet to find like a, a a graphic organizer of the phases, I think during the presentation to actually create that graphic organizer with them, to show them the different phases and how each part of the project fits into that phase would be very helpful.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And really identifying, because the project itself is construction management, right? And kind of teasing
Mhm.
out a little bit of the project management
Mhm.
versus construction management piece of it, I think is a cool opportunity as well. So awesome. Any questions from the audience? All right. Well, we'll hear from Brandon, who also did construction management. And you'll see a little slightly different phase. Lloyd's going to be right back, so we're going to give him just a second to join back in so he doesn't miss out. But if you do you want to share your screen, Brandon, or you want me to share mine?
Um, I'm trying to think. I think I only uploaded the lab report. I didn't upload the presentation.
Okay, that's no problem. Yeah, so
Uh,
if you didn't upload it, then if you could share your screen.
yeah. So,
And sorry, I forgot to mention on Jen's, that those drawings are, they're a really critical part, and I like that's a piece that y'all should emphasize, like must be in their presentation and must be in the lab report, depending on which one you do, because that's really the one of the skills that we're trying to get them to do. And we'll see it on the second to last day, but we do have like a unit on drawings and on doing those top view, side view, and isometric views. So
That was a challenge for me.
yeah, and we're not trying to make them experts. It's a small little snippet, but we do have a dedicated unit for drawings and how to appropriately do the drawings. And that's one of the recommended fall projects that teachers find, make the construction
Mm.
management project a little bit smoother. But also, there's something to say for not doing that unit because then their drawings are awful, and then there's more RFIs. So I had Edie Boudreaux, who was on the call yesterday, she's like a drafting teacher, so her drawings were like super perfect and there were no
Mm.
RFIs. And I was like, well, when you make the drawings, like when you know what you're doing and the drawings are super perfect and it's a fairly simple shape, then it defeats the purpose of the RFI piece of it. But yeah, no, that was great. All right. All right. We can see your screen, but it
Yeah.
looks like it's maybe frozen on slideshow. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Oh,
Keep going back and forth between actual slideshow and the full screen. Let me change it to just the window. Oh, I'll just. All right. You want me to wait for him to get back?
I think he's back. He joined back in. So
Okay.
it just says his video is not working, but
I got you.
he has
Yeah,
joined.
my internet went out a little while ago over here.
Yeah.
Had to reboot. So I did the construction management project. I used the Mecha Bricks.
Are you able to minimize me? It's covering. Oh, there it
That
goes.
better? All
Perfect.
right. So the presentation, I used the sample that was put into the project. Um, but the way the sample was written out, I kind of did my presentation based off of my students' interpretation. I know what the students at my school will look at and will do. If they see a presentation done a certain way, they'll do kind of what is on it, no more, no less. Unfortunately, so the introduction with the whole project, they would have to design, draw, budget, bid, and build. Lego structures, simulating real engineering project management. That's what the whole project would be, and the requirements for it. They would have to build the structure. They'd have to come up with a budget. They'd have to sketch it out and do a bid sheet. Some constraints on the entire project would be the materials used, the time frame used, if they get the appropriate views that are being seen. So, and this was kind of my sketches that I drew out before I went into Mecha Bricks. I just did that here. When I'm doing this project at my school, I'll probably have way more advanced sketches drawn out and able to, because I'll have all the um, Adobe software on my computers. And I teach design, so I can show them how to do things and help them. A lot of the kids who are going to take this class as well have already taken my design class, so they'll have a background in drawing. I think the counselors also want them to have a slight background with the art, but did a front view, a side view, and an isometric view, and just put little kind of GIFs in there to showcase. After they took those sketches, they would come up with a cost sheet. The company that built the structure, they also would this is a bid sheet by a company that was looking to do the structure. I highlighted the different things. And I know on the bid sheet that when you're looking at just one view, if you only got one view, you may think that certain bricks are the same. So you might put a different amount. And one thing I kind of learned from going through the entire project is maybe with a company that's bidding on a project, you might put a few extra pieces in there. That way, in case you don't particularly get the right material on there before you start the project, that extra material is built into your budget. And then testing and design. So I created it with the Mecha Bricks. I kind of made the different size bricks that were used, different colors. So the green ones were the 4x. I think the bottom one was like a 4x18. The top one was a 4x6. The reds ended up being a 4x2. The blues were 2x2, and the yellows were the 1x2s. And the blue and the yellows looked the same from the front view. So that's where the teams could get mistaken, but they'd have to execute it, build it, resolve any RFIs. And the one RFI I did in the lab report was I asked from the front view, because that was the only view provided, whether or not the row 4 and 5 bricks were 2x2s or a different size. And the response given was they were 1x2s. So since the team hadn't put that on their bid, it came out of their profit margin at the end. Um, so it was a little mistake that they did, but it's a building curve, especially with construction companies. And then, at the end, you have to have effective project planning, communication, and RFIs will resolve estimation errors, ensuring successful teamwork. And I learned possibly adding additional materials to a design to cover possible mistakes in the bid estimate may help you out. Mistakes will take directly from the profit margin. And I've worked before. I was a teacher in the real world. So in restaurants, we always had kind of let's say, I'll go back here. I'll stop screen sharing. In the restaurants, we always had mistakes, and you're always going to run into mistakes regardless of what you're doing. The biggest thing, especially with project management, is being able to communicate with everybody. You have to learn in the engineering field. My cousin is he owns his own construction company, and I talked to him about engineering right when I got put into this class, and he said, yes, I own the company. I've been doing it for a long time, but the biggest thing that any person that works for me, they have to be able to communicate with anybody, because we're going to be talking to so many people so many times, builders and different construction crews, people that deliver the materials, like the people that pick up the trash. Every person has a vital role when you're doing the projects, regardless if you're at the top or always at the bottom. And I learned that from being in charge of a restaurant. Every person plays an integral role in the restaurant process, from the person who brings the food in, the person who washes dishes, all these types of things. So have to be able to communicate. I think with project management, having a project manager that can communicate, but also have a clear definition of what the end result is. It keeps everybody on track. And you just have to make sure that the people stay kind of in their lane, do what's requested of them, if they have, and always asking questions. In my design classes, I tell them, ask me 5,000 questions. I'd rather you ask me 1,000,000 questions than to just do it and get it wrong. And with this class, I know it's going to be the same. I'd rather them ask so many questions. And a bunch of them always tell me, I'm asking too many. I said, no question is a dumb question. Not everybody knows everything. So.
For sure. For sure. Awesome. Well, again, Nick crushed it. Nick knocked it out of the park. So I think this is the first year that construction management has been done right by the teachers during the training. So that makes me feel really happy that our edits and modifications to the teacher notes and the student handouts are effective, because in the past there was always like a lot of confusion about what roles were what. So this project in petroleum, we've really reworked extensively to add that clarity, and I'm feeling like it's working. So yeah, no, that was awesome. Clearly you have some experience with drawings, because your drawings were, very well done. Something that, I popped into my head is the bid process, right? So part of the role of the teacher is that you're going to review the student bids, because each team is going to bid on 2 projects. And I pulled up the slides to see, we don't really talk about profit margin. We don't really talk about the cost of the materials per se, and like maybe if you put a markup on it and what a profit margin would be. And maybe that's something that's like missing a little bit. I mean, I think we mention it, probably on the phase 2 planning part, but that's something that I think probably everyone has quite a bit of experience in some capacity, that you've had some bids, you've had some, you can talk about profit and what a profit margin means. But maybe that's something we can add into the slides a little bit more explicitly. But how you evaluate the bids is up to you, or you could also involve the students. Sometimes in the effort of time, you just say like, all right, like bid A is going to go to bid team B, bid B is going to go to team C. Like you can just make it arbitrary. You can make it lowest bid. You can make it most expensive bid. You can kind of decide how you want to award the bids to the teams, and and then maybe that's part of the discussion and the reflection question, right? Like, well,
Yeah.
this was the lowest bid, but they also only made 5% margin because they forgot a whole bunch of materials. And so, like, is that sustainable as a company? But then you have the company who bid, so expensive, they were not awarded the bid. So what does that look like? And we're going through that right now. We started our kitchen renovation yesterday and we came home, kitchen's a wreck. And our contractor texted and was like, yeah, so your walls are plaster and we bid it for sheetrock. And so demo is going to take a lot longer than expected, but like they're not changing the price because like that was our contract price and that was their fault for not recognizing that it was plaster filled sheetrock instead of regular sheetrock. So,
Mm.
Yeah.
I think we've all probably had some experience that we can draw on for this project. And again, just the tiny nuance that I want y'all to bring back to your students is kind of a little bit of a separation between project management and construction management, and highlighting like when the construction managers really take over, where project management's like the whole thing, right? And construction management's really kind of like, all right, the bid has been awarded and you're managing the construction piece of it. Now, a lot of construction manager graduates go into project management where they are managing the whole piece of it. Um, but yeah, the construction managers really take over at the like execution phase. Like, let's make sure that all the bits and pieces are all there together.
And isn't like the difference between the both, like the project manager is more of the office person handling the paperwork and everything, and the construction manager is the one on site making sure everybody's doing the job.
Right, right. Yeah, so exactly. So project manager is definitely more like high level, like full scope of the project, and the construction manager, like if you look on let me share this screen right here. So if this wasn't your project,
Hmm.
you might not have watched the videos, but like project managers go all the way from like, okay, the customer decides that the project is feasible. So they're like, okay, let's move forward. So then the project managers are really in this, like, what is the scope of the work? What is the plan? What are the end goals? And that's not really construction managers, right? But once they've said, okay, this is the project plan, then they go out, they and part of the project plan is like, okay, what are these plans? Then the this is where the construction groups are going to bid on the job and be awarded it, and that's where the construction managers come in and execute the project. So it's really they definitely overlap. There's a lot of crossover, but construction managers are not so much involved in like the early planning phases of like, can we do this project? What would that look like? What are the goals? What are the deliverables? They're more like, we've decided to do this project. This is what we want to do. The construction managers say, okay, here's how much I'm going to do it for, and this is how fast I can do it. Um, so yeah.
Vanessa, where is that presentation?
Is this not the one that you watched? This
That's
is
the video,
this is the
right?
video.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the video?
I mean, it's the slide deck that I was using when I was presenting the video. So for all
Oh,
of the projects, we have the video linked here, right? So this is the video of me presenting those slide decks, but in the teacher notes, which in LTP is here, but since you guys don't have that view, you can get to it from Google Classroom. Um, I have the lesson plans and teacher notes just
yeah.
because. So if you go to construction management,
Teacher notes.
so it's usually the PowerPoint slides are linked right here.
Okay.
Yeah. and then also in the recommended project folder, you should also be able to access it that way as well.
And where was the cost? I see it, cost estimate, craft
Yeah,
sheet.
so
Okay,
again, so we have it in
okay,
LTP in the actual project here.
gotcha.
This is
That's what I was having trouble locating all of that. Okay.
yeah, so the cost sheets are in the teacher resources because it kind of depends on which one you assign, right? Whether it's like Legos or craft sticks or Connects. So the cost sheets are in the teacher resource folder. But generally, when you start a project, if you just open the teacher notes,
Yeah.
everything should be linked in there.
Okay.
So you'll have the slides, you'll have the guest speaker video, you'll have the evaluation, you'll have the link to the video for the video recording of me presenting the slide decks. You'll have, rubrics. This is the link to the recommended project. So everything that's in Google or that's in LTP should also be in the teacher notes. And then, um, yeah,
I still don't see the cost sheet.
um, so the cost sheet, well, because you can't, oh, yeah. So because you can't see this, that's why it's
Yeah, because
in
I
the
couldn't
teacher.
find the bid sheet and I couldn't find
Ah,
the cost sheet.
yeah. So that makes sense because, it's you don't have access to this
Okay,
view.
okay. All
In
right. I
when
thought
you
I was going crazy. That's why
no
I was saying
no
it was hard to
you're
find stuff. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
so it would be linked in the teacher notes, and I think the bid sheets
I found
um
it somewhere because I
the bid
used it.
sheets are in the student handout. The Are they not?
No, like I couldn't find the bid
Oh,
sheet. I couldn't find the cost sheet. I couldn't find any of that.
okay, weird. So I mean, so they are in the uh recommended project folder, but I will add some of those links in and make that well so the cost sheets will definitely stay as a teacher resource just because we don't know which one is which, but I don't know why the
And that's the one I had to get permission for because I couldn't get into this
um
folder.
yeah, oh, so I guess the bid sheets though are part of it is the cost estimate sheets is what it is, so
Okay.
because
Yeah,
it's
I didn't
it's
have that.
part
Okay.
one
Okay.
is your actual cost, and then the next two are your bid sheets. So it depends if you're using Connects, but you're right. It was behind the teacher resources here,
Okay.
which because you guys are students in LTP, you don't see the student resources
Okay.
or the
Okay.
teacher resources, but you would see those normally. Um,
Yeah, so
but
Brandon, I kind of used yours to create mine. So I don't know where
Yeah,
you
I had
found it.
found it. I think I went through the teacher resources because I found them somewhere.
yeah,
I forgot where. Probably the teacher, that one that was put into Google Classroom.
Okay.
I'm sure.
yeah, I'll add these in to here. Um,
Yeah, on that lesson plan and teacher note in Google Classroom, they had the Lego Craft Stick connects, and that pulls you to the sheet, and that's what I used.
Yeah, so I'll add them in here in the teacher notes because in theory, everything that is in the teacher notes or everything that you need should be in the teacher notes.
Okay. Thank
Linked
you.
in. But generally we I try to have everything linked here, and the
Mhm.
recommended project folder will take you to the root Google Drive folder that should have everything that you need for that project.
Good
Uh,
deal.
yeah, one thing that I guess I can go ahead and mention, we do have alternative projects built out for some of these. So, you know, you do have access to the root Google Drive. If you go to the shared with me in your Google Drive, you'll see the Intro to Engineering folder. But we have alternative projects and a virtual recommended projects. We don't have these in LTP because obviously the expectation is to do the recommended project. The virtual projects were some of them were COVID products and some of them are just things that we've built out a little bit more over time. And you'll see, you know, it still says like under development. So, you know, they're not necessarily fully thought out projects. They might be ones like this one's pretty fully thought out because this used to be our main project, which was to build a house of cards to withstand a hurricane. The earthquake one, it could just be like a link that we found on the internet of like, hey, this is a cool project. So they're not fully fleshed out the way that the recommended project is. But yeah, okay. Questions from the audience about construction management or kind of what the workflow is, what the expectations are? All right, cool. Thank you guys.